Welcome to another exciting episode of Home Sweet Home. My name is Rod McCall.
And I am Bryce Runge. Welcome.
You know, it's good to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you forever.
It's good to see you, too.
Well, you know...
I felt like I just saw you.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you did. Maybe, time flies.
Time does fly.
When you're a kid, time drags by.
Yeah.
When you get to be, your age or my age, time seems to go by a lot faster.
Yeah. You say that, and I was talking to my buddy Brian in California, and, he's one of the common threads that he, hears from his clients is that time never slows down.
No, it speeds up.
Yep.
Always gets faster.
Yep. Enjoy it.
Very true, very true. So,
what are we talking about today? Well,
I had this idea, and so I did a little poking around, and I found a magazine, National Geographic magazine, and pull your head out of the gutter, and it was but it got me thinking. There was a bunch of different things in there, and it was talking about how to about your inner voice. And we all have our inner voice.
Yep.
And it constantly is running all the time, almost like a constant running monologue.
Yep.
Do you have something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I try and fight them off quite a bit.
Well, they talk about, in this article, they were discussing about how our inner voice can either be an encourager or a discourager.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me thinking about how many times my inner voice has been both a blessing and a curse.
Right.
And so when I read this article, and it wasn't very long, but it got me really thinking about, is that inner voice, how accurate can it be? And what can happen when it goes negative?
That's yeah.
Has your inner voice ever been negative?
Yeah. Probably a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could look in the mirror. Oh, man, you're so out of shape.
Ooh, yes, that happened this morning.
Man, you're ugly.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking you were. No, it's just, it's those things. That's the enemy trying to tear you down, man.
Okay. But it's that enemy within.
Yep.
And so that's why I really found this short article kind of intriguing, and I thought maybe we could explore that a little bit. Because, even just last night, Sherry had to run an errand. She says, I'll be right back. She says, can you shut the garage door behind me? Because she got a new car, and the remote has not been programmed, or the garage door she hadn't been successful in programming it into the new car yet. So I said, sure, okay. So I go out. She's, in the car getting ready to leave. I grab a little dessert from the refrigerator. I go in thinking, okay, well, I'm going to portion it up, but I got to bring it back out. So after I bring it back out, I'll shut the garage door. Mm-hmm. Well, when I do, the garage door was already shutting because she went ahead and shut it. And I was thinking, well, man, she's probably pissed at me. She just said, would you shut the garage door? And I said, yes, absolutely. And then I don't do it. Mm-hmm. And so I was thinking she would be very upset with me. My inner monologue was running of well, way to go, dingbat. You did something dumb again. Mm-hmm. You're creating a problem, creating a conflict where all you had to do was push the button on the garage door opener. It would have shut. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't say anything to her when she got home because, I was busy watching some basketball. And so this morning, I was out. I put in the new. Well, he got a new inspection sticker, and so got that put on her car. So I walked back in and I said, "Hey, I'm really sorry, but I want to explain, about last night in the garage door." And she goes, "What do you mean?"
Yeah.
And so I explained what I just said, or I said what I just did to her, and she goes, "Oh, I didn't even think about it. I just figured that you hit it and it just didn't work, and so I just got up and I did it."
Mm-hmm.
So here I was, my inner critic was telling me, you did something kind of dingbatty.
Right.
You created a possible conflict. And so in my mind, I was going, oh my gosh, when in reality, it was maybe I made something out of something that wasn't there.
Yeah. Oh, I've been there. I've learned though, and it's an ongoing process. And we talk about your thought life. This is exactly what I talked about when I spoke last night.
Okay.
How to enhance and develop your thought life. And I don't know if we mentioned this before, but there was this new study that came out in Queensbury, Ontario, or wherever it was. Some researchers, neuroscientists, and they have discovered that they couldn't determine the content of people's thoughts, but they determined how many thoughts a human has per day, and it's 6,200 thoughts per day.
Really?
Yeah, and I shared that, but it's often something that we really kind of neglect, that we don't really enhance or think about our thought life. We don't develop our thought life.
Okay.
And so it's an ongoing process, and it is in essence a battlefield. Up in the brain, it is a battlefield. You've got now. If research is if this is true, you've got 6,200 thoughts per day. That's a lot of stuff bouncing around in your brain. And so, what are you thinking about? How are you thinking about these things? Like perspective, right? Like Sherry's like, really not that big of a deal, but you're beating yourself up.
Yeah.
And I've been there, so it's like. Again, how are you thinking? What are you listening to? Which voice are you listening to? Which wolf are you feeding?
Sure. Okay. Now, sometimes, and I can remember growing up, I would talk myself out of things. That inner voice, you see the cute girl, and I'm thinking, ooh, we got a school dance. I'd like to invite, because, unlike now, we used to have school dances all the time.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, oh, I want to ask her out. Mm-hmm. And, I'd talk myself out of it. Well, okay, you're in class, and she says no. Well, now you've got that awkward tension between you and her. Or, well, you're friends, and you'd like to escalate that a little bit and get out of the friend zone. But what happens if you misread?
Right.
Or it doesn't go well. And now you've lost the person as a friend. Mm-hmm. And so I would talk myself out of it. But sometimes maybe that was a blessing, because maybe that inner voice knew something that your logic or the other parts of your brain didn't want to maybe have you focus on and recognize.
Right.
But, so that inner voice, it can be, it talks to us all the time. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that, when you listen to that inner voice, and that inner voice gets to be negative, it can really generate all kinds of self-doubt into us. Mm-hmm. And you begin to question, well, what did I do? I really made a mistake. Again, like what I shared, about just last night, shutting the garage door. And you're right, it wasn't such a big thing, but for a while, it did increase all kinds of negative things that I'm going, because, having not been the best husband the first time, of course, I didn't have a good partner to be a good husband with, but I've really dedicated myself to being more attentive, more aware, things that I guess us guys aren't really so good at.
Right.
And so I do have, so that inner voice does communicate quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. And
sometimes it's a little nudge, apologize.
Right.
It's that little nudge of, well, you know what? Oh, you're here at the store? Get a small thing of flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Or, hey, let's go for a drive. Let's go see what's on sale at Dairy Queen.
Right.
Just something of, let's go do something together.
Yeah.
And so I listen to that voice, but in fact, I listen to both sides of that voice. But when you listen to that critical part, they were saying that it generates all kinds of self-doubt, but it can also increase your stress level, increase your anxiety, and increase your depression.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that 1,000%.
So the question then begins to focus on, okay, how do we kind of quiet that voice? Because, a lot of times I feel like that voice sets for me unreal or potentially impossible expectations. Mm-hmm. That, well, why can't you do that? Well, why aren't you smart enough to know how to do this or do that? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times, I'll think, well, I think I know how to do that. And I'll get going and I'll realize, oops. And then it's then that inner voice kicks in and goes, see, I told you weren't that smart.
Yeah. And
so it's kind of like, then I hesitate to try something different another time. And so again, what's interesting is that I don't always have that inner voice say, see, you did know what you were doing.
Yeah.
So sometimes, I don't know, I get frustrated with that inner voice.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Do you talk back? Do you try and override the negative comments? Do you try and take captive those negative thoughts?
I don't know. Maybe sometimes.
Something I heard maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago. And I know it sounds simple, but I would implement it. And anytime that I would hear that negativity, just try and just tear me down, I would literally say, delete. Like, hit the delete button. And just say, delete, that's not true. I would speak against it. And especially when I was in a season when it was dark and things weren't, I wasn't okay with where I was at.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, there is more. And I'm gonna get there. Right. So I'm like almost speaking against that negativity, that negative inner voice. Because again, I knew, like, man, as I would continue to listen before I would start developing my mindset, that it continued to bury me, and like create that bitterness, and that, like you said, it would increase anxiety.
Okay,
it would increase depression.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it is culture. Where, we have a culture that, well, you have to be successful to be successful.
Yeah.
And, that, I don't know. Sometimes there is sometimes I'll go, yes, good job, McCall. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I wonder, do you need that inner voice saying, get up, go do it? That is our motivation. Mm-hmm. Would we do it on our own? There are times where, like, okay, when we're on holiday, spring break, Christmas break, Thanksgiving break, summer vacation, and I don't have to get up to be somewhere, and I'll go, oh man, okay, I guess I better get up and do something today. Mm-hmm. Is that inner voice? I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of asking out loud to the universe as a whole. But in which case, that would motivate me. Okay, go up, get up, do something. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I do. But it's, as I was reading through this National Geographic article, they talked about a study that was done at UC Berkeley.
Okay.
And they said that give yourself what they called self-compassion,
mm-hmm.
especially after you make a mistake. Because it's usually after a mistake, something we do that didn't come out quite right, that, that inner voice goes, see, I told you,
mm-hmm.
loser, dummy, idiot, or some, at least those are the words that come in my self-critic. But they were saying that if you can provide a little self-compassion, hey, you've never done that before.
Right.
So what did you expect? Did you think you were going to be one of those highly paid professional result type things?
Mm-hmm.
So by giving yourself a little bit of, again, what they call self-compassion, that actually can lead to self-improvement.
Yeah.
Well, what did you do right? What went according to what you thought? Let's focus on the positives, so that way then it might make it a little bit easier to deal with in some of the areas that can be improved, those things that didn't turn out quite right. Because they're basically saying that by giving yourself a little bit of self-compassion, you can be more effective in dealing with your own internal criticism as well as maybe somebody else's. Because when I get critiqued, and luckily, I've been teaching for a long time, so I can take the criticism a little bit better because it's a lot less than what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But with compassion and understanding, focusing, okay, well, you did these things right. Well, now in my professional career or even in your personal life, the things that you maybe have made a oops on, well, you focused on what you did right, which gives you courage and strength to potentially then fix the things that didn't go quite right. So that way you can be improved the next time you do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've been learning to get better at this. Specifically in this area about, giving myself grace.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what you don't know.
True.
And although I was going to make a joke. No, I'm not. No, nobody is perfect. And you're not always going to hit the mark.
True.
And so, giving yourself grace, understanding, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm gonna mess up. I'm gonna drop the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you start to hear that negativity, I think you can be consumed by that enemy of your soul that's telling you you're worthless. Mm-hmm. There is no hope.
Uh-huh.
And people can and I've been there, you could get really consumed by that. But if you start to fight against that and you start focusing on, wow, this is all the things that actually did well, and I'm going to reflect and I'm going to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you have to be willing to grow there in order to do that. And so, it reminds me, we were talking about this the other day, when I mentioned it last night about Thomas Edison and the light bulb. What if Thomas Edison, and I'm sure that he obviously had an enemy, right? It's an inner critic, right? Telling him, well, you suck. You can't invent this, right? What did he do? He's like, I didn't fail. I just found 10,000 ways. It just didn't work.
10,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
Yeah, but he kept going, and I'm sure, what if he did? What if he just flipped the quit switch? No pun intended. But... okay, well, yeah, I am stupid. I am worthless. I'm never going to do this.
Exactly. And like you, I have been there. I have allowed that inner voice to limit me in things that I am, I don't feel comfortable doing. It's outside my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And So I can talk myself, listen to that inner voice and go, all right, fine, I won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yet when I ignore that inner voice, I mean, I think about our podcast and I think back to those first few that we did, and we learned a lot
absolutely.
on those first few. I think most every comment I've gotten from, individuals who do listen to us, they all comment, yeah, those first couple weren't so good.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, so now when I tell it, folks, well, if you start at number 1, please be patient. We do get better.
Yeah.
I think we still are in that getting better
we're
mode.
We're still growing. We're still getting better.
But we're still trying. And we're still, same way with teaching, same way with, I can remember the first time I tried to drive a stick.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting at an intersection. I can picture it today. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting at an intersection. We're on a hill, but we're going up.
Oh, no.
And so we're first in line at the stoplight in the right-hand lane. So people can't go right and people can't go straight. And I went through 4, maybe 5 cycles of that light before I could get the clutch, the accelerator, all to work together to get through that light. And I got to tell you, the number of times I was probably called all kinds of dirty names and told I was number 1. I mean, but here I was stuck at the. Now, once I got the hang, and now I could drive a stick just fine.
Yeah.
But that first time, and I wasn't, that's where the inner voice wasn't, that was being ignored. I was just excited to have a car.
Oh, yeah.
Woohoo! And so we were, but every time I go through that intersection, I remember that event. And now I can look back and laugh, but, it's funny. You look back on the things that, the first time you did it. Mm-hmm. The first time, you played football. The first time you tried to go surf. The first time you swing a bat. Mm-hmm. I mean, you think about baseball players. I think athletes in general, but I would think, baseball players and basketball players, when they're, they shoot or they swing the bat and they miss. Mm-hmm. And they miss and they miss and they miss and they miss. I mean, we look at a baseball player, and if he is batting, 300, he's got a really good season. Well, that means he's missing 2 out of every 3 pitches. Yeah. And we're celebrating that's a really good baseball player. Yeah. We look at basketball players, and same way, especially, being a big college basketball guy, it is, that's more my deal. But, you look at those players, and, they'll go, maybe 8 for 30. Mm-hmm. Well, they had a pretty good night tonight. 8 for 30.
Yeah.
That means they missed, way more than they made, but they kept shooting. And so I think that's the thing that I liked, or I took out of this self-compassion thing, or, as you called it, grace. It's okay to miss.
Yeah.
Just don't give up.
Yeah. Well, I like what is this? Who said that? I think it's Wayne Gretzky who said, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. You're talking about sports and missing, and take, we had that, with Braddix and I was like, hey, go, something with a girl. I'm like, go talk to her. It's like, oh man, I don't know. What happened? I don't know. She doesn't talk to me. Okay. What if she does though? Mm-hmm. And what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, just go for it, dude. Swing away, right? Just go for it, right? But see, automatically, like, what if she says no, or what if she does? Focus on all the things that can go right.
And that is something that I think sometimes I wonder how much that inner voice also is age related.
Okay.
I mean, I'm thinking about because I was thinking about this topic, and I got thinking, okay, how much, when I'm listening, when the inner voice is speaking, what is it saying? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes our inner voice grows with us. Right now, I could care less if people talk to me. I'm not as concerned about, how I look.
Yeah.
And But yet when I was Braddock's age, it was all about what people thought about me. It was all about how I looked. Mm-hmm. It was all about things that today we go, oh, they don't really matter. But when we think about our inner voice, what does it tell us?
Yeah.
It talks to us about, work, or, it still talks about, personal relationships. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You said something a minute ago about, you were uncomfortable, certain things, and then that the inner voice will validate your discomfort.
Oh, yeah.
And so what I have learned is that in that place of discomfort, there's a lot of good things that can happen. But I think the inner enemy will always try and keep us in a place of discomfort so that we cannot grow and get better. Because again, what is it saying? The inner voice there, the negativity, mm-hmm. right? So what is that doing? It's tearing us down. So right, I want you to live in this state of mediocrity. I don't want you to be successful. I want you to be bitter and depressed, and right? Mm-hmm. So I think when you could learn to embrace that discomfort, mm-hmm. you start to understand that discomfort is a catalyst for development.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to get there. I've been there, and there are some things still, it's like, oh, but I know, like, because I've come so far. Mm-hmm. This was 10 years ago, I'd be balled up.
As I am pushing into the mental health world, there are a lot of things that I'm a little hesitant to try because it's not in my wheelhouse. And one is promoting, some of these new skills that I have and trying to promote it to other people so that I can branch out in how I can, of new services, creating a website. And it took me forever to develop that website to the point that it's now up and running because, I don't know how to do it. I don't know. I need somebody to walk me through it. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a grown man. I don't need somebody to hold my hand. Just follow the directions, do what it says, and voila. But try it first. Stop talking. I was listening to that inner critic going, well, Rod, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. And when I finally overcame that inner critic, I went ahead and I looked at it, I pulled it up, and I spent several days working on manipulating it, getting the right kinds of stuff and information posted, and now I got the website up and running.
Yeah.
But now I got to overcome that inner critic of how do I promote it?
Yeah.
And so I still, even though, and that's why this particular article in the National Geographic magazine spoke to me so loud, because I still deal with it. Mm-hmm. I'm still trying to address, because one of the things that the article did talk about was this thing they called the scolding voice. All right. How does your inner voice talk to you? And does it talk to you like a friend? Does it talk to you like a motivational coach? Does it talk to you like somebody that's angry with you? And so I got thinking about my inner voice.
Yeah.
And my inner voice doesn't talk to me very friendly.
Yeah.
Does yours talk to you very friendly?
No, it's more of a talking down to kind of, very opposite of what you as a motivational coach or something, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the voice that will or has and will continue to, again, I keep saying this, to try and tear you down, to try and keep you just living in this state of okay, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's,
or even below that.
Well, see, and I think that's where so many folks are. And so and part of this article is saying things that we can do differently. Well, tell your voice, tell that inner negative critic that you need to talk to me like I'm a friend. Mm-hmm. And you can return, or I don't know, I've got to practice this to see how well it will work. But use words like, thank you, inner voice. Thank you for pushing me. Mm-hmm. Thanks, inner voice. I got this.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to take it from here. Appreciate it.
Yep.
I'm okay, inner voice, with where we're at and what we've done. But talk, basically turn it back on its ears. Mm-hmm. Take that inner voice, and instead of succumbing to the negativity that it can generate, flip it around. Yep. Okay, thank you. Because if somebody is riding my butt, and I've had bosses that have ridden my tail end, I'm now at that point where if I'm going to get a lot of negative criticism, I'll kind of interrupt them and go, okay, thanks, appreciate it, got it. Is a shut up.
Right.
Because I'm done listening to what you're saying.
Right.
You haven't said a whole lot of positive, but you've said a whole bunch of negative. Right. And I'm done listening to you and your negativity. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, wow.
Yeah.
So I'm anxious to try this. I've got some stuff to work on, for the nonprofit that I'm trying to get going. And so I need to do that because part of me is going, PlayStation 4, yeah. PlayStation 4, go kill some zombies.
Yep.
Relax, rest. But then the other part of me is going, but you got some other stuff you haven't done all week. Mm-hmm. It's been, you've got it, it's printed, you just got to read it, highlight it, add it in. It ain't going to take you very long. But then, that inner voice going, just let it go. Mm-hmm. And it's almost, then it goes into that light wolf and dark wolf. Which one are you going to feed?
Right.
So it is kind of interesting, the voices that are in our heads and what they tell us. But what's even more fascinating is how we listen. Mm-hmm. Who do we listen?
Right.
So I'm anxious to try to tell my inner voice as it starts beating me down. Thank you. I got this. I'm okay.
Yeah, and I would consider that something that over the years I've tried to cultivate this, and with Braddix and even with Suzanne and the girls, I will continue to do this. And have you heard of PMA?
PMA, no.
PMA.
I heard of PMS.
No, this is probably the opposite. And sometimes I'll lean to Braddix if he's, having a rough go or he's listening to the inner enemy. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, PMA, dude, positive mental attitude. And so what you're doing now is you're fighting back with positivity.
Okay.
Right. So and that positive mental attitude, it determines so many different variables, and we do have an innate ability to achieve greatness through positive thinking.
Okay.
So when you start talking, you override that with positive thoughts. No, I got this actually, and even if I do fail, I'm going to learn from that opportunity.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yeah. So we've got to take captive those thoughts. We've got to identify those thoughts and where they're coming from. And again, I didn't create the brain, and I'm far from an expert. But I've learned a lot.
True.
And I understand through experience and research, and our minds, they matter so much. How we choose to think will significantly impact everything that happens in our lives.
Okay. I can't disagree.
Well,
I cannot. I totally, yes. Because we've done a variety of episodes talking about mental health. or various aspects of mental health. Again, I've been on working towards that new degree, and a lot of what they do talk about is having the mindset, how powerful the mind is. Our mind can override our body. I don't know. I like a lot of historical fiction, and I read stories about Navy SEALs. They have a 90% dropout rate. Wow. Green Berets, Airborne Rangers, all these special military schools have a massively high dropout rate. But those that succeed are the ones that are able to use their mind to override their body. Mm-hmm. And so, again, as you were saying that and listening and thinking about what the article had said, yes, mind over matter.
Yeah.
So one of the other things, and this is where I found it very intriguing. I don't know how easy this is going to be for me, but it was talking about physical gestures.
Okay.
Okay. No, not that physical gesture. But physical gestures can provide basically a soothing effect. So like a hug yourself.
Okay.
Or, putting your hand over your heart, like you're saying the Pledge of Allegiance, can actually provide a soothing effect to our central nervous system. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, okay, I may try that. I think that'll be weird, especially if I'm, not by myself.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm hugging myself. I could see people looking at me going, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I get weird looks all the time. So
I think I have done things in the past where I've put my hands on my head, right, to help me okay, calm down, think, right, take captive these thoughts, right. And so
okay.
I don't do that all the time. Sometimes I'll look in the mirror. I know it's not like you said the gestures, but sometimes I'll speak into the mirror. I'll speak confidence into the person I see.
Okay.
I know that maybe sound weird, but it's just. I've seen what it does.
It works.
It works.
At some point, no, I think you're right that who cares what it looks like if it works, if it can help you overcome the negativity, because I think that negativity can be like quicksand.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely.
And it can,
1,000%.
It can suck you down. It can keep you there. It can be debilitating. So,
and not some quick manner. It's like quicksand. It's so slow and it's a painful thing, and
the more you struggle against it, the more it sucks you down.
Yeah, the harder it gets.
So the article ended with 3 phrases for us to memorize. That when we're feeling when that negative voice, that inner critic is getting to be overpowering. Their suggestion was to recite these 3 phrases.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. The first one, this is a difficult moment.
Okay. So affirm that this is a difficult moment.
Yes.
Okay.
2, many people experience this. I am not alone.
Oh, yeah. That is helpful to know that people have been there before or are going through it, right? That always has kind of helped me.
That was the best part about the divorce group. As I was going through it, right. I realized, okay, not only do I see that I'm not alone, I'm hearing I'm not alone. I am in a room with a lot of other people. So the self-doubt that I was going through about, what a failed person you are, all these kinds of things. Now, so it resonated with me that yes, being with other people, well, I don't need to be with other people to know that I'm not alone in my struggle. Yeah. All right. So 1, this is difficult. Moment. 2, many people experience this. I'm not alone. And the third phrase, May I be kind to myself. May I give myself what I need. May I be strong.
I like that.
So it's self-affirming.
Yeah.
And it's giving you permission to tell that inner critic, thank you, I got it. Shut up.
Right.
Sit down.
Go pound sand.
Pretty much. So I'm anxious to try this.
Yeah. Hey, this got me thinking, this episode, and I'm glad that you did some research on it. Do you mind if I share something?
Share away.
Because it brings me back to a chapter in my book. I'm not, I guess, shameless plug again.
Wake up by Bryce Runge.
One of the chapters is called My Mind is Playing Tricks on Me.
Oh, okay.
And it does, again, a battlefield. It could mess you up.
Okay.
Right? If you don't pay attention to your thoughts. Right.
Okay.
And so I open up the chapter telling about the story of how there was a stowaway who traveled the country by train.
Okay.
And one night he gets on to what he thinks is a boxcar. Once aboard, door closes, locks shut. He gets settled in. He thinks he's good for the night.
Mm-hmm.
But then he realizes he's in a refrigerator boxcar. Starts to panic.
Okay.
Freak out. Screaming. Beating on the door. Nobody comes because nobody hears him.
Right.
Well, then he's got to ask the question, like, dang, is my mind playing tricks on me? Like, what's going on? Am I going to die in here? And sure enough, he engraves a message on the floor explaining his unfortunate and imminent death. The next day, a repairman from the railroad company comes, opens the door, and finds the man dead inside. And the repairman was there to fix the boxcar because it was broken.
Huh.
The man died because he thought he was freezing to death.
But instead,
So automatically, he thought disaster.
Okay.
He listened to the inner voice.
And succumbed to it.
And so doctors and scientists they've confirmed this, that our mindset is our most effective weapon for recovery. Even more so than our physical status or our prognosis.
Huh.
Mindset is everything. How we think, how we choose to think will determine what goes on.
I can't disagree. I mean, I remember back in the early 80s, they talked about biofeedback, which was mind over matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, when you put your mind to it, you can do anything.
Yeah.
And I think that this article says the opposite can also be true. So instead of listening to the inner critic to keep you down, use some of these strategies.
Mm-hmm.
These 3 phrases, I'm okay, I got this, shut up.
Right.
So I'm anxious to try these things as my inner voice tries to, encourage me to not do anything.
Mm-hmm.
The status quo.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Don't fall into it.
I'm going to try not to.
I know. It's easier said than done. It's a continuous, habitual, moment by moment process of developing your thought life.
Yeah, and knowing how to overcome the obstacles. Because, again, they're there, and it's that self-doubt that can be really debilitating.
Mm-hmm.
And that listening to that inner voice can make life so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so finding ways to overcome that, well, we can make life a lot more enjoyable, a lot more fun, and maybe a little more adventurous.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
you want to go bungee jumping?
No, but I was going to let you cook for me. That was about as adventurous as I was going to get. Try eating your cooking.
How about I have someone cook for both of us?
Listen to your inner voice. You got this.
Oh, I know I do. I just don't want to. I got a card that can pay for. Good one. I love it, man.
All right. Well, that's all I got.
All right. I love it. This is good stuff. Hopefully, our listeners will be equipped with some really good stuff that you unpacked and help people really develop their thought life and overcome that negative, that inner enemy that we all have.
Well, I'm going to use it myself, so we'll find out in due course.
Okay. Sounds good.
Well, until next time, I'm Rod.
I'm Bryce. See ya.
Peace.